Luke 10:25 through 37, the parable of the Good Samaritan. Someone should probably help him. That was the thought. Not a cruel thought, not an angry one, just a quiet sentence that makes it easier to keep walking. You see someone sitting alone, staring at the ground. You notice your coworker has barely spoken all week. You receive a message from someone you care about that says, "I'm having a hard time right now." You read it. You think about answering. Then the day gets busy. There are emails waiting. A meeting starts in 10 minutes. Your children need you. Your phone keeps buzzing. There are bills to pay and problems that already feel bigger than you can handle. So you tell yourself, "I'll check on them later." And later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Have you ever done that? Maybe not because you don't care. Maybe because you care so much that you already feel exhausted. Then someone else's pain appears in front of you. For a moment, you notice it. The tired eyes, the silence, the hesitation in their voice. You know something is wrong. And then another thought arrives. I don't have the energy for this. Maybe you've said that to yourself. You may want to help. You may even pray for them. But sometimes prayer becomes easier than presence. Sometimes saying, "I hope someone helps them," feels safer than becoming the person who actually stops. And you don't always know what your decision means to the person on the other side of it. The friend you kept postponing may have needed one conversation that day. You may never know. So what if the person in front of you isn't asking you to fix their entire life? What if they only need you to stop, to notice, to come a little closer? Because there is an ancient story about a man who was beaten, robbed, and left on the side of a dangerous road. 3 people saw him. 3 people had a choice. 3 people could have kept walking, but only one stopped. And when you discover who that person was, the story becomes more uncomfortable than a simple lesson about kindness. Because the deeper question is not, who deserves your help? It is this: what kind of person will you become when someone else's pain interrupts your plans? That question reaches your office, your family, your neighborhood, your phone, and your ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Sometimes the moment that changes a person's life doesn't look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a message you almost don't answer. Sometimes it looks like one simple decision: keep walking or stop. More than 2,000 years ago, Jesus was asked a question that sounds surprisingly modern. A religious law expert asked what a person must do to inherit eternal life. Jesus directed him back to what he already knew. Love God with all your heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. Then the man asked, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus did not give him a list. He told him a story. A man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho when robbers attacked him. They stripped him, beat him, and left him badly wounded. A priest came along. He saw the man, but he passed by. A Levite came next. He saw him too, and he also continued on his way. Then came a Samaritan. For Jesus' first listeners, that detail mattered. Jews and Samaritans had a long history of hostility, yet the Samaritan saw the wounded man and stopped. He went toward him. He treated his wounds. He carried him to a place of safety, and he paid for his care. Jesus then asked which of the 3 had acted as a neighbor to the wounded man. The answer was clear: the one who showed mercy. And Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." That is the heart of Luke chapter 10, verses 36 and 37. Notice what Jesus did not say. He did not say, "Go and feel sorry for people." He did not say, "Go and fix every broken life." He said, "Go and do likewise." Because compassion becomes real when it moves. 3 people saw the same wounded man. The difference was not what they saw. The difference was what they did after they saw him. Here's what most people miss about the Samaritan. The remarkable part is not simply that he felt compassion. He acted on it. The priest saw the wounded man. The Levite saw him. The Samaritan saw him too. All three had eyes. All three had a choice. Only one allowed what he saw to change what he did next. That may be the part of this story that reaches deepest into your life. You can see someone hurting and still walk away. You can know someone is lonely and still tell yourself you're too busy. You can care deeply and still do nothing. That is uncomfortable to admit, but it is also hopeful. Jesus gives you something simple. See the person. Move toward the person. Do what you can. Takeaway 1. Stop asking, "Is this my problem?" The man who asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" was looking for a boundary. He wanted to know where his responsibility stopped. Jesus gave him a story that changed the question. The Samaritan did not stop to calculate whether the wounded man was technically his responsibility. He did not ask whether the man could repay him. He saw someone who was hurting, and he responded. So the next time you notice someone hurting, change the question. Instead of asking, "Is this my problem?" ask, "What is one thing I can do?" One thing. Not everything. You might send the message. Make the phone call. Sit beside them. Bring them a meal. Listen for 10 minutes without checking your phone. You don't have to repair their entire life. Sometimes a person doesn't need you to remove the storm. They need to know they are not standing in it alone. Takeaway 2. Move closer instead of looking away. The Samaritan did not remain at a safe distance. He went toward the wounded man. Moving closer can be difficult because you may have to see what you would rather avoid. You may have to hear the story. You may have to sit with tears. You may have to listen to something you cannot fix. But sometimes the person in front of you does not need another answer. They need someone who will stay. Have you ever been hurting and had someone immediately tell you how to solve it? You probably remember how that felt. Now imagine the opposite. Someone sits down. They don't rush you. They don't interrupt. They don't compare your pain with theirs. They simply listen. You feel seen. That is a powerful form of mercy. So when someone tells you they are struggling, resist the urge to immediately fix the situation. Ask one more question. How are you really doing? Then listen. Let them finish the sentence. You don't need perfect words. You don't need a perfect answer. Your presence may be what they needed that day. And if you are the person who is hurting right now, hear this carefully. You are allowed to let someone come closer. You don't have to pretend that everything is fine. Sometimes receiving compassion requires enough courage to say, "I need someone." There is no shame in that. The wounded man did not have to prove that he deserved help before the Samaritan helped him. He simply needed help. And the Samaritan stopped. Takeaway 3. Love becomes real when it costs you something. The Samaritan's compassion cost him time. It cost effort. It cost resources. It interrupted his plans. He could have felt sorry for the wounded man and continued on his way. But compassion that never becomes action leaves the wounded person exactly where they were. This is not about being perfect. This is not about saving everyone. This is not about carrying every person's pain. This is about refusing to let inconvenience become an excuse for indifference. You cannot help everyone. You cannot solve every crisis. You cannot be available every hour of every day. But you can choose not to let your busy life make you blind. Maybe love will cost you 15 minutes. Maybe forgiveness will cost you your pride. Maybe kindness will cost you an uncomfortable conversation. Maybe generosity will require you to give something you wanted to keep. Real love sometimes asks something from you. What if it is the person sitting across from you? The parent who looks exhausted? The friend who keeps saying, "I'm fine," even though you know they are not? The person you have been avoiding because forgiving them would require you to put down your pride? At the beginning, we asked, what happens when someone else's pain interrupts your plans? Now you have the answer. You stop. You see. You move closer. You do what you can. Not because you are trying to become a hero, not because you need recognition, not because you expect something in return. You do it because someone is hurting, and you have the opportunity to show mercy. That is what Jesus placed at the center of this story. Mercy. A mercy that moves. A mercy that notices. A mercy that costs something. And perhaps you need to hear one more thing. You may have spent years remembering the times you failed to stop. The person you didn't call. The friend you ignored. The opportunity you missed. Don't let regret become another reason to stay distant. You cannot go backward and change yesterday, but you can choose what you do when the next opportunity comes. There may be another person, another conversation, another moment, another wounded heart standing quietly in front of you. And this time, you can stop. You can choose differently. You can become the person Jesus was describing. The wounded man did not need someone who could explain why he was suffering. He needed someone who would come near. So when you walk into tomorrow, don't ask only, what do I need to get done? Ask one more question. Who might need me to notice? Sometimes God does not change someone's life to a spectacular moment. Sometimes he works through an ordinary person who simply refuses to walk past. The Samaritan did not know how the story would end when he stopped. He only knew what was in front of him. A wounded man, a need, and a choice. You have choices like that too. Perhaps in your kitchen, at your workplace, in your family, in your inbox, in a conversation you have been avoiding. And when that moment comes, remember the final words of Jesus. Go and do likewise. The first truth is simple. Love begins when you stop asking whether someone else's pain is your responsibility and start asking what good you can do. The second truth is personal. Mercy moves closer. You don't always need the right answer. Sometimes you need the courage to stay, listen, and let another person know they are seen. The third truth may stay with you the longest. Real love will sometimes interrupt your plans. And one day you may discover that the moment you thought was an inconvenience was actually the moment you were given the chance to change someone's life. So when you see someone hurting this week, don't wait for someone else to become the Samaritan. You may be the person who was meant to stop. Who is one person in your life who may need you to stop, notice, and simply be there this week?